Now, at the end of it all, the race played out with little to no controversy compared to 2021. We did see a moment where Lando was under investigation for possibly going off track and gaining an advantage. Yuki Tsunoda was the one who was handed a 5-second time penalty for moving more than once in defense. Lando was not given a penalty for track limits despite being very close to outside of the white line when he made the pass on Tsunoda, but you can wonder if the stewards maybe decided that it was Yuki's move that had forced him over there. Obviously, Lando not wanting to take any major risks, trying to be as careful as he could as he worked his way up through traffic again, but ultimately not given a penalty for track limits. We didn't have much on-track action besides that. Once the field got spread out, this race did have a lot of hype and media attention coming into it, really for the first time since 2021, when there was a championship on the line, a driver's championship at least. Obviously, there was the constructors last year as well, but all the prestige is with the drivers. There was a lot of prestige on the line heading into this race. And yet, I think a lot of people might have considered it a bit of a snoozer. So, Kobe, we'll go to you first here. How do you view this weekend if you're F1 and Liberty Media? Do you look at this as kind of a snoozer of a race, or is it still a big success with the pomp and circumstance of a championship? Is Abu Dhabi still the right track to host the F1 finale?
I guess it doesn't matter if we think if it's the right track to host the finale, because I know they signed this long-term deal for it to continue being the finale for many years in the future. So it doesn't that's going to be changing anytime soon. They've done different things, with this Abu Dhabi, the Yas Marina Circuit, to try to make it more compelling. I mean, the previous layout we used, was obviously not great. And then they decided a few years ago, to create a revised circuit and try to create more overtaking opportunities where you can dive bomb and all of that. And yeah, we've seen a few overtakes, mostly I guess in Formula 2, in those places. But it just really seems like that, Abu Dhabi, yes, it has the pomp and circumstance, where people will want to, come out to the track, and see the glitz and glamour that is Formula 1. But from strictly an on-track product perspective, I don't think Abu Dhabi is the right place, to host a Formula 1 finale. Remember in the past, used to host a finale at Interlagos, and I thought, that was a nice venue to have the F1 season finale and all of that. And I guess if you really wanted to get big, why not have it in Las Vegas? I think that would be a lot of fun, for America to host the season finale at Formula 1. But that's obviously not going to be happening anytime soon. But if we had a say in all this, I would really like to see the championship, go to a different location, or maybe even rotate, like the model that NASCAR is going to be bringing in the next couple of years, where different tracks are going to be in a group on a rotating basis, where the championship will be here for a few years, and then it, just keeps moving around. So it's, not just one track, hosting the season finale. But I still think Formula 1 and Liberty Media have to be very happy that the championship, went down to the final weekend, because there were a lot of storylines heading into this weekend, whether Lando Norris we're going to be able to hold on. Could Max Verstappen, complete one of the most impressive comebacks in Formula 1 history, or could Oscar Piastri, despite his chances of winning this championship being unlikely, could he find a way to get it done? And, people kept talking about Formula 1 until the very end of the season, because if this had been wrapped up, a lot sooner, it just would have been just another race weekend. Be like, we're just tuning in to watch the last race of the year, and that's that. But they had a lot of hype and media coverage coming into this weekend, wondering what on earth was going to happen, and whether it would be, like 2021, where you had like fireworks and explosions, hopefully in a more positive way this time. But this race today, it didn't really have a whole lot of action. So I think from that perspective, obviously, very disappointing. But it is typical Abu Dhabi, because you're probably not gonna get, an exciting on-track product, given the history of this track, and even the revised layout didn't really help out much at all. But Formula 1 Liberty Media have to be happy it went down to the final weekend.
Yeah, I agree 1,000%. It was like all the stars aligned for Formula 1 and Liberty Media with all the storylines, and I frankly don't think they cared about the racing product. I think they got what they wanted with Max Verstappen win, and how Lando needed to finish at least third to keep that title, and he still finished third, and Oscar being right there in second. It was one of those things where everything that they wanted to happen on paper, I think, happened. But I think Kobe is 100% right. I think Abu Dhabi, it was not really worth the 3 hours and 8 minutes of sleep I got. I closed my eyes at 4:55. All of a sudden, it was 8 o'clock, and I turned my TV on for the formation lap. That's how my morning went. So it was I don't think they cared about the on-track product. I think it could have been like, was it Monaco this year? Was like the first time in history and one of the first times, I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, where like the top 10 didn't change positions and the starting 10 finished in the top 10. I think that was Monaco. But that could have literally happened today and they still would have been satisfied based on what had happened, because it kind of did in certain ways with the qualifying and stuff like that. So, yeah, it was a snoozer of a race. They should definitely not be at Abu Dhabi at the end of the year. But it is what it is. They signed a long-term contract to do it. I think Interlagos would be awesome. I even think somewhere like Mexico City would be fun just based on the environment. Anywhere Las Vegas, I mean, I would rather have COTA. I mean, Vegas is the idea of it, right? I think NASCAR 2 at Las Vegas would be a fun championship ending. To have both NASCAR and Formula 1 there would be pretty cool. But, yeah, I think it's cool that they have it on like an actual circuit. But yeah, the product wasn't great, and I honestly think it was incredible that the stars aligned to have 3 guys fighting for the championship at the last race of the year. Because if they didn't, I probably would still be just waking up by now, because I probably wouldn't have woken up to watch this race. So very exciting. They got what they wanted. So congratulations to Formula 1, and obviously end of an era with ESPN. I know Apple TV starts up. I guess whenever the season starts. So that's going to be very interesting to see. I have Apple TV, but still not a fan of that whole change. But to each their own with that. But yeah, and also I know, Ben, I would love if you would touch on this too. The post race was like, I know it's kind of changing the question, but in terms of
Yeah.
I mean, it was like 2 minutes at most, and then immediately cut to the lady at the end, or the woman at the end, where she was like,
yeah, sure.
this has been F1, and then it cut off. I was like, what the hell? Sorry, but yeah, I just wanted to add that to that.
Yeah, and I know I said that message in our private chat as well. And just to put a bow on Abu Dhabi here, they got to figure something out with that track if it's going to be the finale for the next however many years. I know they've tweaked the layout a couple of times, but I would much rather be at Interlagos. I can't really name a memorable moment from that race that didn't also have the title decider factor to it. Like, you can think of 2010, obviously 2014, 16, and 21, and now obviously 25. But even this year, nothing I think is really going to, I mean, maybe we'll talk about that Lando pass on Yuki for a little while, but pretty straightforward race nonetheless. Obviously, it was tense with a championship on the line, but not a very compelling race. I think Interlagos would be much better. But yeah, a little disappointed in ESPN, especially since it's the end of an era. I know that, obviously their coverage is much different than NBC's was, but, NBC had a whole sign-off planned with all their hosts, and looking back at all the different moments. Obviously you can't really do that if you're ESPN, I guess, since you mostly just simulcast the Sky Sports feed. But for there to be basically none of that for their last race, maybe there was on ESPN3 or streaming online, I don't know. But in terms of linear television, like you said, Matthew, very quick sign-off. And, quite frankly, selfishly, again, I think as a whole, it will probably be a net negative going to streaming with Apple next year. But as somebody who's subscribed to Apple TV, and as somebody who took in the MLS Cup yesterday, and congratulations to Lionel Messi and Inter Miami on clinching that. But been very happy with the Apple coverage over there. It's just been an accessibility issue, but the MLS season pass is going away. Apple was on the air an hour before the game, and I think an hour and a half after the game ended with all their coverage and everything. So I'm hoping to see something similar when Formula One comes next year, and I'm hopeful that it will be top-notch coverage. Again, you just have to wonder how many people are going to drop the however many dollars a month or a year you need for Formula One. So we'll have to wait and see. But selfishly, like I said, I am looking forward to the coverage as a diehard fan. I just don't know how many of the ESPN newer fans or casual fans are going to follow over. I know Jeff Gluck posted that picture of the bar at Charlotte at 9:30 in the morning, packed, watching the conclusion of the F1 race. I don't know if you're going to get too many scenes like that if you go over to Apple TV. So that'll be something that we'll just have to wait and see going forward how that looks like next year.